Well, welcome to another Thursday. And I want to talk about gun responsibility and responsible gun ownership. Gun responsibility and responsible gun ownership. Again, welcome to this Thursday, May the 6th, 2021. Why do we need to have a conversation about guns and gun ownership? Well, I think part of it has to do with the environment in which we live. Because of increasing violence and threats against innocent people of our communities, more and more people are feeling the need to be armed in order to protect themselves, their families, and their property. And of course, possessing a gun seems to be at the top of their list of things to do. People are sort of feeling like they're unsafe, so they're afraid, and now they're turning to guns. And then there's that craze amongst a certain segment of our society that think guns are toys or guns are cool and really not that serious. And some see guns as some sort of status symbol or badge of courage that empowers the beholder, but nothing can be further from the truth. Now that's my take, so don't hate. Okay? Let me say again up front that I am not promoting guns one way or the other. I am not promoting gun ownership one way or the other. My goal is to help protect us through education and understanding of guns, because guns are all around us. And we will eventually get to the politics of guns and the so-called gun control initiative that has been going on since dirt. And my view is this, is that rather than trying to paint this negative, demonic picture of guns, I think a better approach would be to educate Americans on the value and sanctity of life and the responsibilities associated with gun ownership. That's just what I believe. Guns and gun ownership are woven into the fabric of our Constitution, but that doesn't mean that every American has to own a gun. But it does mean that every adult American of sound mind, and that is with some legitimate exceptions, can own a gun should they choose to do so. That's our choice. We have a right, but that's our choice. And there's generally a difference in how rural Americans see guns and how urban Americans see guns. Usually, rural Americans are exposed to and taught about guns from a very early age by their parents or their relatives, and their general use of guns may be different from what an urban individual think about. Okay, for urban Americans, we learn about guns from what we see on television, on the internet, and in the streets, and how guns are portrayed by gangsters and criminals. So our view of guns would generally be negative, incomplete, and inaccurate in many cases. Okay, so it's a whole different world, whether you're urban or rural. So before we get into the politics of guns, I want to go a step further with gun safety through gun responsibility and responsible gun ownership. Gun ownership is a huge responsibility. It's a huge decision, and it's not one to be taken lightly or done on an impulse. Any quick decision you make about guns will probably be a wrong decision and a bad decision. All right? It's not something we ought to make, again, on an impulse. If I were talking to Christians, I would, only to Christians, I would say, you really should pray about this decision. But since I'm speaking to all Americans, I would simply say, please give gun ownership some deep and serious thought and consider all the possible ramifications before you decide on a gun. There's a certain amount of liability that goes along with gun ownership or gun possession. Whether you ever own or possess a gun or not, I believe gun education, gun safety are essential for our safety and for the safety of our families. I truly believe that. So let me share a few thoughts with you about guns that I believe would be helpful to each and every last one of us. Because I believe that when you are helped, the rest of us are helped. And of course, being in the military and in law enforcement, it is obvious that I have some experience and some knowledge of guns and some training with guns and some use with guns. In fact, My experience goes even further back. My knowledge and experience with guns began when I was in high school. And I won't tell you about those particular experiences. But those early experiences where I learned the little I did know about guns from family and friends, and those experiences could have very easily cost me my life. It is only by the grace of God that I am still here, and I thank God for that, because it could have very easily gone another way, because I didn't know what I should have known about guns. I didn't know what I should have known about life. And when I'm asked about guns, whether or not a person should buy a gun or own a gun, if they inquire about the details of gun ownership or gun use, I give them a very basic 3-question test. First thing I ask them is this: do you now own a gun, or are you willing to own and keep a gun? You got to have a gun, okay? If that's what you decide to do. Are you trained or willing to be trained in the use of a firearm? Second thing you got to be willing to do: do you think you have what it takes to kill a person or to take a person's life? That's what it comes down to. I've already told you how I feel about that. I am not one that thinks and believes that I was the same way when I was in the military, when I was in law enforcement. I don't believe in threatening people with guns. I don't believe in warning people with guns. For me, a gun is only for one thing, and that is you're in a situation where either your life is going to be taken or you're going to have to take somebody else's life. And you got to understand that. And you have to make a decision. Is this something that I'm willing to do? Is this something that I can do? Okay? And then I have to add that fourth question in there. I have to throw that in, because I have to ask the question, are you willing to accept the responsibility? Listen, are you willing to accept the responsibility for your actions with the use of a firearm? Okay? Are you willing to accept responsibility? Are you willing to accept whatever consequences there are, suffer those consequences as a result of your actions involving a gun? If you can't answer yes to all of those, my friend, in my opinion, you are not ready for gun ownership. If you can't answer yes to every last one of those questions, you are not ready, in my opinion, for gun ownership. Still, let me give you a few things. Never carry or handle a gun if you have not been properly and professionally trained in the use of that particular firearm. Guns are nothing to play with. I told you that already. Guns are not toys. They are nothing to play with. If you have not been trained properly and professionally in the use of that gun, leave it alone. Don't even pick it up. Don't handle it. Zilch, zero, nothing. Okay? Never ever keep a gun in the home. This is my view. Never keep a gun in the home unless everyone in the house, everyone in the home have been properly and professionally trained in gun safety and in the use of that particular gun. Those are the decisions you got to make for yourself. And I know what you're saying. What about the children, this and that? You make those calls, and I trust you make the right call. All right? If you're in possession of a gun when confronted by a law enforcement officer, listen to me very carefully. Notify them immediately in a non-threatening way. Maybe even both hands up. Don't shoot, both hands up. Make sure you have both hands in view. Notify them that you have a gun on you or close by, or if it's in your vehicle, let them know where it is. Sir, ma'am, I have a weapon on me. It's on my right side, on my left side. I have a weapon that's in the console. I have a weapon that's under the seat. With your hands in plain view, and speak loudly enough so their body cam can pick up what you're saying. Okay? Hold your hands up so their body camera can pick up your hands, all right, in order to protect yourself. But don't be thinking that, well, maybe they won't see it, maybe they won't ask. Because most police officers are going to ask. I mean, going back to the time that I was in law enforcement, especially if you suspected something. Now you don't have to allow people to search your vehicle unless you want to. But here's what we used to do. Here's what they still do. Sir, ma'am, do you have a weapon on you or in the vehicle? They may ask you. And just tell them the truth. Tell them, yes, it's I have one here, there, whatever. But I would suggest that you tell them up front that, pardon me, ma'am, pardon me, sir, I just want you to know that I do have a weapon, and I'm licensed to carry the weapon. But it's on my side here, it's in my console, it's whatever, okay? Make sure that they know that you have a gun, and they may say, well, step out of the vehicle, or may ask you to hand them the gun. Now, let me tell you something. Personally, I have done this in the past, but I don't recommend this. Police officer say to you, well, pass the gun to me and let me have it checked out. No, ma'am. No, sir. If you allow me to get out of the vehicle, I can tell you where it is and you can get it yourself, but I'm not putting my hands on it. Okay? But you make that call. That's up to you, how you decide to do that. I've been stopped, before and had a weapon in my vehicle. I told the officer that I had a weapon where it was. They asked me to give it to them, and I did. And they said, well, I'll give it back to you as soon as we finish the stop. And they did. They checked it out and everything was good. But be very careful about how you handle situations like that, okay? And just be aware of those kinds of situations might happen, okay? The other thing you ought to consider is guns are very expensive. Ammunition is very expensive. And it's very expensive to own and maintain a gun. So, you maybe want to think about that before you run out and buy a gun. Okay? Always, my friend, always keep guns in a safe and secure place. Always keep guns in a safe and secure place. Okay? I believe gun ownership is a choice and not a necessity. I believe that gun ownership is a choice. We have a right to own guns, but I don't believe it's a necessity. I don't think that we're in a position, I got to have a gun. I don't believe that. And you may believe it, but I don't. I believe it is a choice, but it's not a necessity. So I wouldn't recommend that you feel like you got to get a gun and you run and get a gun because you think you got to have one. I don't think so. Okay? Now, if you decide you want a gun, I strongly recommend that you buy a gun. If you're going to buy one, buy it from a gun store or from a pawn shop and not from an individual. Not from anybody online, not from anybody, no individual. If you, my friend, are going to buy a gun, I suggest that you buy one from a gun store, a gun shop, or a pawn shop, because their weapons, their guns have been checked out, checked to see if they were stolen, checked to see if they were, as far as they know, involved in any kind of criminal activity. But if you buy a gun from an individual, you don't know where that gun has been, you don't know how it has been used, nothing. I strongly recommend against buying a gun from an individual. Now, again, I have done that. I have bought a gun from an individual before. All right, but I don't recommend that because there's a certain amount of liability that goes along with that as well. Because you don't know the track record of that gun. You don't know the history of that gun. You don't know what people have done with that gun. Okay? All right? Then, on the other hand, never ever loan your gun to anyone else. Under any circumstances, don't loan your gun or leave your gun with anyone. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Don't let anybody borrow your gun and don't ask nobody to keep it for you. None of that. Okay? Don't even get involved in that. Be aware of areas where guns are prohibited, where guns are not allowed. Be aware of those areas. Please don't get caught trying to board an airplane with a gun in your pocket or in your bag. Come on now. And we don't want to see you march out of the airport in handcuffs. All right? And be aware of those areas. If you have a gun on you, you may go in some stores, some places, banks, where guns are not allowed, where they don't want you to come in there with a gun. Okay? So keep that in mind. And in those cases, you may have to leave the gun in the vehicle, even though I don't agree with leaving weapons in a vehicle unattended. Okay? Let me tell you something else about guns. Gun ownership does not assure you protection. Just because you own a gun, that doesn't mean you're protected. A gun cannot defend you or protect you any more than a gun can kill you. A gun cannot kill you. And a gun cannot protect you. A gun cannot defend you. Every gun has to have a user in order to function. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And you're not necessarily safer with a gun. So keep that in mind when you're considering buying a gun or owning a gun. That gun cannot defend you. It cannot protect you. The only way that gun can do anything for you, to you, or against you is if you use it. It's you. It's not the gun. I don't care what these politicians are saying about, we got to do away with guns and do away with this. We got to control guns. No, we got to control people, control attitudes, control behaviors, because that gun by itself will do you no harm. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So I don't want you to feel protected in any way whatsoever just because you got a gun. You might feel like you're big and bad and you are protected. It ain't necessarily so, my friend, because a gun cannot protect you and cannot defend you. I don't care how many you sit it on the table, keep it in your car, it is not going to protect you. It's only when you take that gun in your hand and make the decision to use it that it may protect you. It may defend you, but there's no guarantee. Okay? I mean, you may think you got to use a gun in a certain situation, and you may be able to, there may be some times that you're able to defend yourself and protect yourself with the use of a gun, but not even that is guaranteed. Okay? Guns are not inherently bad, and they are not inherently dangerous. It's all in what we do with them when they're in our hands. A gun can do you more harm than good, my friend, and you need to know that. And there's some ways in which guns can be a threat to you and your family. Ways in which guns can cause you more harm than good. If you don't understand and practice responsible gun ownership, that could be a threat to you and your family. If you're afraid of guns or don't like guns, that could be a threat to you and your family. If you're not familiar with guns, particularly the one that you own or the one that's in your house or the one that you have access to, that could be a threat to you and your family. If you're not trained in the use of a gun that you own, that could be a threat to your family, to you. If you don't know when and under what circumstances to present a gun or to pull a gun or to draw a gun, that could be a threat to you and your family. If you don't have what it takes to use a gun in a lethal manner, that could be a threat to you and your family. If you present a gun or pull a gun or draw a gun when it is clearly unnecessary, that could be a threat to you and your family. If you're not reasonably sure that you will use a gun when needed, that could be a threat to you and your family. Are you hear what I'm saying, my friend? Please hear what I'm saying to you, because I want you to be helped. I want you to be aware of what's going on with the dangers that are around us. Amen. And I want to suggest to you that no matter what, that you always put your trust in God and not in a gun. Okay? Again, I'm not speaking for or against gun ownership. That's your choice. But I want us to be educated, informed on the use of guns, the existence of guns, the dangers of guns, or whatever benefits there may be of guns. Okay? And listen to me very clearly. My view is this, and this is just my view. I don't believe in pulling a gun. I don't pull a gun to show off to anybody. I don't believe in drawing a gun unless I am ready to use that weapon in a lethal manner. I don't believe in firing warning shots. I don't believe in trying to shoot anybody just to injure them. If I pull a gun, I only do it because, if I own a gun, and if that's what I choose to do, only if I feel that my life is threatened or my family is threatened. That's the only reason. And I'm pulling a gun for one reason and one reason only. So you have to understand, are you ready for that? Are you ready to accept the consequences of your actions involving a gun? Are you ready for that? Are you ready to live with that? Well, I can tell you right now, I'm ready to live. If I have to live with that, as long as I live, I'm ready to live. All right? Because if my life is threatened, I'm going to do everything that I can to live. But that's a huge responsibility, my friend. And it's not one to be taken lightly. Okay, so consider that if you're considering gun ownership or keeping a gun around. Understand the dangers that gun can pose and present to us and to our families. But I believe education can help us. I believe awareness can help us. I believe that respecting and honoring and valuing life can help us. Okay? So think about these things, again, before you go out and purchase a gun. And there may be some situations we just need to leave it alone. grab your baseball bat or, iron or, rock or chair or something, But, by all means, I want you to be protected, but I want you to be aware of the responsibilities that goes along with being a gun owner or possessing a gun, okay? Whatever the reason is, home defense, personal protection, whatever it is, just remember what I told you before. Every gun is a real gun, and every gun is a loaded gun. So handle that accordingly. And really, listen, let me throw this in while it's on my mind. Take every threat in the use of a gun seriously. If someone threatens you with a gun, take every threat seriously. None of this business about, stop teasing. I know you're playing. No, we don't play like that. You take every threat seriously and do whatever you have to do to protect yourself and to protect your family. Take every threat seriously. Okay? So let's go over that one more time. All right. Every gun is a real gun. Every gun is a loaded gun. And I am to take every threat with the use of a gun seriously. And that's my take. What do you have to say? Sound love. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. And if I don't see you on Sunday in church where guns are not allowed, if I don't see you in church on Sunday, I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. May God bless you. May God keep you is my prayer.